All right, everybody, welcome back to part two of our chat with Garik Tate here. This is Arthur Petropoulos, managing partner of Hillview Partners, middle market, lower middle market, investment banking, M&A, capital advisory firm, helping companies generating million to $10 million a year in EBITDA, sell their companies, or find capital. As we said in the last chat in part one of this conversation, we always like to have on from time to time different people we work with, different companies we work with, and implement into our businesses so that way they can tell the world more about what they do and how they might be able to help other people. We've been working with Garik and his team now for a while and implementing AI into Hillview Partners as we try to continue to be really a middle market AI-driven investment banking firm. And we've been working a lot primarily and predominantly in kind of the biz dev component of our business. And so Garik, I can say, is undoubtedly one of the smartest people I've ever met and one of the few people that can tell me things that are so over my head that I kind of just stare and drool. And so to the extent that that happens today, well, bear with me. But nonetheless, Gary, appreciate you coming back for part two of this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. So in the last chat, I know we talked a lot about kind of just the concept of artificial intelligence, generally speaking, the thought of how it effectively is a tool of leverage. I think you aptly pointed out kind of like another industrial revolution or another way of kind of getting more output for the same input and kind of the horsepower of white collar labor and stuff. But in today's
Yeah.
chat, I wanted to talk more on trends and whatnot, but also into some more of kind of pragmatic considerations of it. So first question for today is, if someone runs a business, now, whether it's when we say donuts or doorknobs, right? But in any kind of realm of business, and they say, I want to implement AI in my business to make it better, faster, get better results, just to get better outcomes. What's a good way for someone to start? If they just say, how do I do that? How do I framework that thought? What would you suggest to someone?
So I think there's two ways to go about it. One way is kind of from the bottom up, and that's where you're just training your people to use AI tools better. ChatGPT is the first mover's advantage. It's the famous one, but there's lots of other tools out there. If you do a lot of visual stuff, you're using Canva AI. If you work with Notion, there's Notion AI. Like every tool out there and its dog has an AI component now because the API was very easy just to plug in. It was very easy just to plug into existing tools. But you go about doing that essentially by leading by example, exploring it yourself, trying to use it yourself more often. And then every time, how I think about it is every time an employee comes to me with an issue or a problem, I first ask them like, hey, did you ask ChatGPT about that? Did you already try to solve this with AI? What was the result of that? What did you learn about that? Okay, now let's step in and kind of solve the issue together. So it's about implementing a culture of just a team using AI more, and that's
Sure.
like any culture shift. But the other way that I think is probably the way that I lean towards a little bit more, I think about it as the engineering mindset of AI. And that is not just empowering your team to use AI, but specifically using AI to step in and automate certain parts of your business. So the first step of the engineering mindset is that you need to break your business down into the series of steps that it takes for your business to operate. So every business first gets leads, it then sells those leads, it then onboards those leads, it then fulfills those leads. And then on the back end, you have HR, which does a similar thing with employees, recruiting employees, onboarding employees, letting employees go. It's just the same thing, but on the HR side. So that is a series of modules. You can think of your business as a series of modules with those interlinking steps. And when I'm going into a business to add AI into it, the first thing I ask myself is, which one of these steps would AI actually add the most value? Because you can probably automate a lot of steps that are not going to solve a big pain point. You just start making momentum. And there's something to be said for just learning the process. But I think
Sure.
that if you are a business owner, you're probably frazzled. There's a lot of things going on. You'd rather actually get real value out of it. So I try to find a pass over from one module to another. So I look at how they interrelate. I look for those passes that is causing the most pain. And I measure pain in one of four ways. You could say it's either the bottleneck, reducing your throughput. So if that bottleneck was widened, this is like Eli Goldratt's the goal. If
Sure.
that bottleneck was unconstrained, then the business would grow. That's the first kind of pain. That's the most valuable kind of pain to solve. The second one is just that it's taking human labor, and that human labor is crappy. It's boring work, and you want to improve company morale. So it's like, hey, what if we didn't have to, copy and paste it from the CSV into the Excel document 50 times a day? That would be really nice. The third is that it's expensive. It's using valuable resources. And the fourth is that is it error prone? Are we getting bad quality assurance?
When you think of like near-term applications of AI within businesses, then I imagine some of the near-term stuff is truly just that. People just figuring out ways to mitigate the pain points at different steps throughout their process. Is that fairly accurate?
Yeah, and once you isolate them, and if the examples are digitally accessible, like just to define that a little more, you're going to use basically a tool like Zapier. So Zapier is the most
Yeah.
famous on the market. A lot of people know it. We actually don't like Zapier at all. We prefer Make.com. It's just, in our opinion, just a better, much better platform, cheaper, run more complex processes, just better. But if your team already knows Zapier, it's a great tool. Keep using it, not a problem. Whatever tool you use, you want to use an integration tool that can basically extract that data. Like every time you receive an email and you want to have AI that helps you write the reply, what the integration will do is triggered by an email coming in, send the data to ChatGPT's API with a specialized prompt, and then we'll return back the reply for you. That's something that we're actually building right now for some of our companies.
Now, how do you think of, I guess, longer term implications? I guess as AI gets more developed and evolved, do you see bigger use cases? Is it just faster and better of the same thing, or do you think like at some point it becomes like self-referential where it can build out the list of everything that needs to be done and then optimize it? Or I spin in circles in my
Yeah.
own head, but what do you think of some of the longer term kind of trends?
I think that we are still squeezing the juice out of really just one major innovation. So in 2017, there was a paper published by Google called Attention is All You Need. And that introduced the transformer, the T in GPT stands for transformer. So underneath all these large language models, I believe also underneath the imaging models that use the fusion, underneath all these generative AI models that we're using right now is the transformer. So essentially what happened is that we had this little innovation. Nobody really took it that seriously. It was just, one more branch to the tree of knowledge. And then OpenAI said, you know what? Screw it. Let's go all in. They went totally all in. They went from a totally nonprofit to a now semi for profit. We'll see how that evolves
Funny
continue in
that.
the future.
Yeah.
But they raised, $1 billion primarily in like Azure tokens. Like when Microsoft invested, they didn't hand over $1 billion. They gave them $1 billion for API credits to use Azure
Oh, I didn't know
systems.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's
Um,
fun.
and so then they just threw then initially just 10%, now it's like the entire internet. They just threw the entire internet at this one innovation that happened in 2017. And so then we got it in November 2022. So it took like 5 years before anybody took it seriously enough to like actually go all in. And so why am I saying that? So essentially where I see ourselves, if we're trying to predict the future of AI, is that we're still squeezing the juice out of a single innovation. And to get closer to something like um, true AGI, which is like now we're talking about Skynet. We're talking about these tools, not just being tools, but really co-collaborators or however that evolves. It's called the singularity because we don't know what it's going to look like.
I hear the words machine learning and deep learning. I know which neither of them mean or the distinction between either, but any light you can shed on that.
So I don't know if this is going to be the strictly dictionary version, but this definition has helped me a lot understand it. So machine learning is in some ways conceptually just the opposite of static code. So most code is static. You say if this and that. You write an algorithm
Yeah.
of if this and that. Do these actions, and you're writing them very crystal clear. Machine learning is like you're not telling it how to do it. You're just telling it what to do. You give it an image and it tells you it's a hot dog or not hot dog. Um, and then you give it lots of examples of hot dogs and lots of examples of not hot dogs. I wonder what those are. And then the machine learning, it figures out how to differentiate them. Deep learning is a form of machine learning that essentially uses neural networks. So deep learning and neural networks are essentially simulating the human brain because basically we said, okay, let's play God, let's make something intelligent, and then we said we don't know how to do it, so let's copy someone else's homework, and so we went to nature and we said how do brains work, and let's try to make an algorithm that works the same way, but the algorithm is then very, very simple on an individual neuron, which if you do brain scans, our neurons are pretty simple one at a time. But then you put, 1,000, a million, a billion of them into a system, and then they start outputting really interesting behavior.
All right, now here's an interesting question. I know we kind of touched on it last. Do you believe that there's risk in just kind of like implied biases in some of the outcomes, or I don't want to say restrictions, or like, obviously the answers can kind of guide thought in one direction, or what is, to your point, what is truth if there is truth? And what are your concerns or thoughts relative to kind of biases baked into the machine?
These machines, these large language models particularly, they're not using system two thinking. Like there's that book, I think Thinking Fast and Slow, where it talked about like
Yeah,
system one versus system two. And if I remember correctly, system one is kind of the brain's autopilot. It's much faster. It forms intuitive connections. Um, it's like the type of thinking we do most of the time. That's where we're just kind of sleepwalking through life. System two is when we go a lot slower and we start deploying more, essentially more top-down thinking. So if you have a complex math problem in front of you, like you're in, second grade algebra, and you're having to solve for X, you're having to like think slowly through that problem. You're using system two thinking.
sure.
But if but system one is just kind of yeah, I think it was sleepwalking through life.
Yeah.
You're just doing the intuitive thing. So AI is essentially only system one thinking. Um, it's actually not really doing system two. We still don't really know how to solve for system two thinking. So
Sure.
what does that mean? It means that when we are asking AI a question like that to make a value judgment, it's there's not a place in its code. Now, I will say with O1, where it's starting to do these reasoning steps, it's simulating this. We're getting closer. O1 was a huge step in this direction. But pre O1, and even O1 is just kind of, in my opinion, more simulating it because it's still just using the same underlying
Sure.
GPT-4. It's just there's some intermediary steps. So it's simulating this, but it's on the I think it's on a more interesting path now than it was before. But taking a step back, ignoring O1 for a second, it's not taking a step back and then weighing the decisions and thinking through principles and its values and making a decision. It's just guessing the next word in the sequence.
Relative to your business and AI Co, what do you kind of see as the roadmap, right? Near term, long term for you in growing the business? And obviously we've loved working together, but how do you kind of see your business evolving over these next few years as AI and all of its kind of constituent elements grow?
Uh, for us, the pathway is, we want to be just providing better and better value in the space of mergers and acquisitions. That's why I'm so happy that we're working together because over the long term, we want to not just be growing businesses, but also probably acquiring businesses, merging businesses together, and we're just really excited for I think the next phase of entrepreneurship. I think everyone starts off. Well, not everyone starts off, and everyone has a very different path. You can go into private equity long before you're an entrepreneur, but most people do. But I think of like the progressions of the economy as like a series of levels. First you're an employee, and then next level like you try to start something that didn't exist before. You're a startup, and then it starts making money, and then you can do that multiple times. You know how to do that, and then you're like, hey, can I skip level one? Can I go straight to just buying businesses, and then I can skip all the the product market fit heartbreaks, and I can just like start leveling up. And so for us, we want to be adding more and more and more value in this space of merger acquisition, so we can be build a network with fantastic individuals like yourself, and eventually start buying and selling business.
If anybody wants to get in touch with you, learn more about AICO, learn more about your services and have a chat and see how you might be able to work with them as well, what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so the best way is that they can get there's a form they can fill out on aicoldoutreach.com, or they can find me on LinkedIn and just say Arthur sent you and connect with me there, and we can have a chat.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. And anyone who does that, make sure you remind Garik to send me more and more Starbucks gift cards for everyone who calls him. But no, that's good. But Garik, I really appreciate the time joining us again here. Excited to keep working together, obviously, and excited for us to kind of revisit this chat. So appreciate the time. Look forward to the next one.
Love it. Thank you, Arthur. Enjoyed it immensely.
Sure thing.